Hello, hello. And today I am back with another podcast short. Today I'm answering a question on the subject of work and passion. And to read it out word for word, this was sent to me on Instagram: how to reignite when you've lost the passion for your work that previously drives you. This is a question that has come up in various guises during this podcast. I answered a similar question in the career mailbag episode that followed the career capital episode. So definitely go and have a bit of a deep dive there. We specifically look at the word passion in those episodes, and I draw on some of the work of Cal Newport, who really debunks the idea that we should be building our careers based on passion. He traces the sort of evolution of that mantra around following your passions in your careers, noting that it was quite dominant probably a couple of decades ago. And it can be quite a confusing and misleading path when we think we should be following our passions in our work at all times, and that we should be kind of in that sort of state of passion with our work. I guess a very useful analogy here is thinking about kind of love and passion and how they relate to each other. If you think about you wanting to build a really solid marriage, then yes, there will be that initial spark and that initial passion. But what is going to enable that marriage to survive, thrive, endure over the longer term and be truly successful is going to be building that long term love. And actually, Cal Newport talks about the building blocks of a career that we love and how we create that. We put those building blocks in place. It's not some magic passion factor that attracts us and then keeps us enthralled with our careers. So I think that's the first really important lens, is just questioning the extent to which we want to be passion driven in our work. Yes, it's great when we find topics and subjects that we are passionate about and that we will go over and above to read about and enjoy. And I certainly have found that that can be a really great kind of edge in your like a sharp edge to your saw, I guess. When you have that intrinsic passion, you might be widely read about your topic area and be able to really, chuck in some sort of additional ways of thinking and kind of really push the boundaries in your field. Of course, that's going to be, really beneficial, but it's these other components that are going to give us that longevity. And those are personal autonomy. So having a sense of control over your work. And the more we advance in our careers, the more we're going to have that. It's a kind of something that's earned. You're not going to be able to just land in your first job in your first career and have complete 100% autonomy. First of all, even if you did, which some people have experienced a bit more during the pandemic and hybrid working, it wouldn't be that good for your growth. You kind of need to be held relatively closely in those early years if you want to go through as steep a learning curve as you possibly can. And a lot of workplace learning happens, a lot of learning happens through others. So you do want to have some of that accountability around you and, have some of those structures in place, right? As we progress, we get to have more autonomy, not just in the way that we work, but in the nature of our work, the work that we choose to do. And that is hugely rewarding. And there is so much research detailing how rewarding it is to have that sense of autonomy and how important it is to us. Psychologically, it's a fundamental human need, that desire for autonomy. That's one of the core principles that helps us build a career that we love. Two of the others are impact and recognition. So you could be in any career, but if you're able to have high levels of autonomy, impact, and recognition, you're going to have a much better chance of loving your work than if you don't have those, but you have the said passion for your work. So I think it's really important to be mindful of that. That's my first point. I think the second point is there's something in this question which is around perhaps falling out of love with or losing energy and enthusiasm, and therefore perhaps not having that same drive that you're used to having for your work. And I think that's another great topic to raise. And even independently of this passion question, wherever you sit with passion, the second thing that I want to say is that it's so normal to have phases where we are not as driven in our work, right? We're interested in other things. We have other priorities. We just don't fancy being as all in our work as we might have been in the previous few months or over the previous few years of our career. This goes back to that seasonality. And there's also now quite a good bank of episodes around seasonality. Go and have a listen to the goal setting episode, the first episode of this year. And then also have a listen to the more recent episodes with Charlotte Friedrich on cycles as well. We are cyclical beings, and the idea that we could be in perpetual passion and overdrive with our work is one that we need to really kind of pick apart, because that in itself will create some burnout. And we know that one of the signs or symptoms of burnout is that detachment and the disengagement from our work. So by almost expecting ourselves to have that level of drive and energy for our work perpetually, we are perpetuating that kind of idea that we then may end up in a burnout state. Much better to say you're just going to have phases, right? You're going to have driven phases, you're going to have some treading water phases. That's completely okay. We're building longer term career. I call it life work, but also it's life's work. It's your life's work. So over the course of a lifetime, what kind of work and projects are you building? What are you growing? What are you developing? I think once we have a bigger picture of some of that stuff, it doesn't matter if we have some lean back phases while we focus on other areas of our life, even if those other areas really are around rejuvenation and rest. That is going to be so important, and it's going to also re-energize us when it is time to perhaps step back with more energy into our work. So I've talked about passion. I've talked about how maybe that's not the healthiest lens for us to hold ourselves to and to expect that we always have in our work. The second one I've talked about is acknowledging the cyclical nature of work and allowing ourselves to have periods where we tread water. I've talked in the past, and I talked, I think, in the goal setting episode in January about how I have times when I just want to be in business as usual mode. And I want to focus on other things. I want to focus on furnishing my house, getting prints on the wall. And there's only so many priorities that we can hold in our mind at one time. And when our leaning and when our energy is elsewhere, I want us to lean into that. So, my final sort of point of question or thought for this listener to take away with them is to just step back a little bit and ask, what is this telling you? What is the underlying signals that you're getting from your own self, your body, about your work right now and about your life? And what can you listen into? What can you tune into to allow yourself to embrace, what it's telling you? And how can you then derive some wisdom from that to further and to support your entire life, not just your work? Of course, if this is something that you really want to drill into in a lot more detail, these are exactly the kind of questions that I work on with my clients, especially in the early stages. We want to get that real clarity. We want to work through some of those blockers. And this is definitely one of those that I would be exploring with you in a one-to-one. So do reach out if that's something that you feel you need to explore further. And if you want to know more, there'll be a link to my masterclass in the show notes. And after that, you can book a call with me if you would like to chat further. So I look forward to connecting with you next time. Do send me your questions. I'm really enjoying receiving them, and I'm really enjoying the engagement with you all through these questions. Look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye bye.